Greetings and welcome to another 8/16/32-bit. Today I'm doing something slightly different in that I'm looking at a piece of contemporary hardware, and that piece of contemporary hardware is in fact the PlayStation VR, which you can see here. Now the PSVR is obviously, as the name implies, a VR or virtual reality headset for the PlayStation 4 console. Now, as a piece of hardware, this is a relatively new thing for the consumer market. Obviously, VR setups go way back to the early 90s, where you had the virtuality arcade setups. But as a home item, despite attempts by Sega with the Mega Drive and Atari with the Jaguar to bring virtual reality into the home, beyond the incredibly bad Virtual Boy from Nintendo, there hasn't really been a truly successful piece of consumer virtual reality hardware. Now, obviously, there is Oculus Rift and Vive, but when you stack them up next to the PlayStation VR, they're very different. Oculus Rift and Vive are much more pro-level equipment. They are higher spec. They do give a better quality virtual reality experience, but they're not truly mass market, whereas the PSVR is. In fact, it's now so mass market, Sony have been able to reduce the price whilst improving the product, which is why I got one, because the version 2 hardware has just been not long released, and the price was recently cut by £100 or $100, depending if you're in the US or not. So it made it much more viable as a piece of hardware for myself. So let's have a look at some specs. I've got my little cheat sheet on the computer here next to me. So the PSVR uses an OLED display of 5.7 inches, which is technically 1080p. I say technically because it uses two 960 by 1080 separate screens combined to create a 1080p image in front of your eye, with a refresh rate of 120 or 90 Hz. So you should get smooth motion, and from my personal experience using the PSVR, this is true. It's got a pretty good field of view of 100 degrees. There's a built-in microphone into the headset, some built-in headphones. Obviously, being VR, it's got an accelerometer and a gyrometer to control the movement and all of that. Uses a HDMI and a USB connection. It's also covered in bright lights because it uses the PlayStation Eye camera to help judge where you are in space. Part of this also means, as well as using a standard PS4 controller, you can use the giant glowing dildos of doom, otherwise known as the PlayStation Move controllers, which in certain games does make for a better experience. Now, in terms of games, there's actually quite a few out there, and quite a few of them are good. Obviously, the big boys are Resident Evil 7, which has a VR mode now, which is incredibly immersive, Skyrim VR, and Doom VFR. They're the biggies. Gran Turismo has a limited VR mode, and there is a version of Drive Club that uses VR as well. Other than that, a lot of the games are on a smaller scale and therefore not as expensive. For example, you get VR Worlds with it and Playroom VR, which are basically mini games and tech demos. They're enjoyable, don't get me wrong. VR Worlds, the Shark Cage Dive is brilliant. It's fun, and the London Heist mini game shows what could be done as a full game by a studio if they so wished. Out of all the software I've got at the minute, my favourite ones, you've got Star Trek Bridge Crew. It's brilliant. You get to be the commander of the starship. Who doesn't want to be Captain Kirk or Captain Picard? It's great. You can issue orders to Helm and science and weapons. You get to interact with the crew. It's great fun and a really brilliant sense of immersion. I've got Until Dawn Rush of Blood, which is it's not really a sequel to Until Dawn. It's set in the same universe. It's basically an on-rails shooter where you're on a roller coaster stroke ghost train with twin guns blasting all sorts of zombies, clowns, dolls, monsters, and it has some really, really well done jump scares. Because obviously in VR, a jump scare that normally on a game wouldn't get you, in VR with 3D audio and stuff coming at you from the sides, it's excellent. Also, the best one I've got for some fun, and the one that my wife loves the most, Fruit Ninja VR. It's absolutely brilliant fun. Exhausting, and while you're playing it, you think you're being a great ninja with your twin katanas. You look like a complete and utter tit. Really, really stupid. But anyway, yeah, PSVR, it's brilliant. Like I said, £250 or $250. It's a brilliant piece of consumer hardware. It is worth the money. Because this is one of the routes that the future of gaming is likely to take. The search is always on for a more immersive experience, and PSVR is only going to get better. It's probably pushing the limits of what can be done with the current gen of hardware, but come the next gen, you should see an increase in the fidelity of the image, which will probably bring it closer in line, if not on a par, with Oculus Rift. So now I'm just going to show a couple of little demo reels here of a couple of bits of software for PSVR, and that'll be it. So if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, share the video, leave me comments. Even if you've not liked it, leave me comments. It's all good, and I will see you next time.
Peggy 18.
Welcome, my friend, and step right up to the ride of your life.
PS4 for the